Fear of failure and also the excitement of success both hold their realms in what drive me on a day-to-day basis. I am constantly thinking about my business and I am constantly terrified that if I lose this customer or this grouping of customers all in the same day for some reason, how would I recover? Because I'm not giving myself another option. I do not want to go back to working a job and working for other people. I want to stay on my own forever. So I am always thinking of ways to insulate myself from the worst case scenarios. And the fear of losing my customers, of losing my relationships, of losing the income that I'm now producing on a month to month basis, it drives me to keep going onward and onward. Now, that only drives me when I am stagnant. So if it is a weekend time and I sit, I get very uncomfortable. I struggle with racing thoughts of my entire business could fall apart tomorrow. And then what would happen? What would I do? So I try to plan ahead of that. So I'm always constantly adding new leads into my CRM system. I'm always constantly prospecting and I'm constantly trying for growth. But that only drives me when I am not working. That fear only gets me to start working. Now, once I am actually in the actions, once it's in the work week where everybody else is working from Monday to Friday, the excitement of success is what keeps me going. It is never the fear of failure because that fear of failure would stop me in my tracks on a weekday. If I thought that I was going to make a cold call and fail at it, I would never make the cold call. But instead, it's the excitement of the potential that could happen at the other end of the cold call of that's the reasoning why I make the call in the first place. So they work in conjunction with one another for me. It's the fear of failure gets me to start when there's nothing that I think should be done. And the excitement of success keeps me going on the days when I know that I should be working. They don't mix with one another. The fear is only on weekends when no one's working, when things are quiet. I'm like, oh my gosh, everything's falling apart. And then once the work week begins and once my customers are all back in their offices and I'm receiving quotes and I'm just back to having conversations with my customers, my prospects, I'm so excited about what the future holds that I'm like, I got to go start more of these conversations. I need this in my life. One of them does not work without the other. You need fear to understand excitement. You need excitement to understand fear. You need success to understand what a failure looks like. You need a failure to understand what success looks like. And once you can start to have these things over the course of 2, 3, 5, 10 years, you can start to have a little bit of pattern recognition. I cannot perfectly describe to you in words what my sales process looks like from beginning to end. I can't perfectly describe to you nearly anything other than my operational process, but I can tell you what it looks like when I win. And I can tell you that my process now looks a lot different than it did when I worked for somebody else. There is a lot of forcing that comes in this business. You have to force the conversations. People do not Google logistics companies and my company pop up. I'm not big enough. There are too many competitors in the space, and there's too much revenue that is shared all throughout the industry that I'm not even close to. I am nowhere near the top 100 largest freight brokerage in America. I'm nowhere near the top 1,000th, most likely. I'm probably not in the top 10,000. So therefore, I have to force the conversations. I have to force my name in front of people's faces. And then from there, I win those conversations because I am personable and my services matter. And my pitch is just slightly different than every other broker out there. I would have to imagine. I can't tell you for sure, but I would have to imagine that it is, or else why would I win business? I don't mention anything about rates out of the gate. I never thought to. Winning on a low rate, as everyone will tell you, it means that you're just going to get replaced by the next lowest rate. I don't mention rates. I say that I can quote out lanes for you, but I never mention rates. What I mention is building solutions for people to insulate them from market changes. I don't speak about rate. And my sales process now looks a lot different than it did a year ago. It looks a lot different than it did 3 years ago. And it looks a lot different than it did 3 months ago. My sales process is, I can't even describe it to you. I would have to write it out on paper what it looks like. That's how little I can describe it in words. I would have to write it out on paper and then say, no, that's not exactly accurate. I actually do it this way. I cannot define it for you here and now. But the fear is what gets me into action, and the excitement is what keeps me going. So they don't live one without the other, but they've worked for me, and I'm sure that they can work for you if you learn how to use them properly. But you will suffer from some racing thoughts, most likely, if you end up like me. It just comes with the territory, I think. Or maybe it doesn't. Who knows? I'm not gonna go talk to anybody about it. Work for me.